Let me ask you this question then. There are a lot of Catholics who leave their religion. There are a lot of Jews who leave their religion or who don't practice their religion. So far, anyway, I have not heard any stories of how they were coerced into that religion in the first place. They may leave their religion because they no longer believe, but you don't hear stories of brainwashing or of all of the other things. Why do you think the people who leave the Unification Church, why do you think those people who leave tell those stories?
Oh, I agree. Again, this historical perspective. If you read the awful disclosures of Maria Monk, 1905, you will hear horror stories about Catholic monasteries, Catholic nunneries, where the Pope was taking over their minds, the priests were having sex with them. And this engendered a lot of hatred against the Catholics. Nunneries were burnt down. Now then, thousands and tens of thousands of people have come to the Unification Church, stayed for a week, a month, a year, and have left without being deprogrammed by the likes of Steve here. And I worked in Boonville in Northern California, a place of much ill repute through the newspapers for many years, from 1977 to 1980. And I will say literally tens of thousands of people came to the Unification Church in that period of time in San Francisco. And of that, 5, 6, 7,000 people joined the church and stayed for a week, a month. Some people even stayed for a year. But of those tens of thousands of people, perhaps only 1,000 people actually stayed 3, 4, 5, 6 years, a long-term commitment.
But Mr. Hassan had problems getting out.
And they did not go to the newspapers and say, I was a slave of the Moonies. And therefore, they didn't get
society
media attention. It's only people who are processed through the deprogrammers, vicious criminals who will break a person's faith for money. It's only people who are processed by those people, I would say a couple of hundred, who go to the papers and say, I was a slave of the Moonies, I was in a Moon slave camp, and they get big headlines, the National Enquirer, lapped it up, front page headlines.
Hold on.
Just those few people.
You can continue in just a few moments. We have to take a commercial message. We will continue this conversation, and we'll be getting to your phone calls as well, so stay with us. Welcome back. We've invited your calls, and I understand that the phones are very busy at this time, so we're going to take a couple of calls right now. Line 2, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Hello?
Hello?
I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little better, yes.
Okay, the question is, since I consider all churches cults, isn't the struggle simply between old established church cults and the new cults for power and money?
All right, thank you for your question. Were you all able to hear that? Is this really a struggle between old established churches, and I believe you also called them cults, versus the newer religions that are coming in, and it's a struggle over trying to get more money?
Not at all.
Mr. Hassan?
I don't think so at all. I don't think that that's really what's happening. I think the basic issue is human rights and whether or not people have foreknowledge about what they're being involved with, what processes are being done to them in terms of changing their way of thinking, their sense of identity, their values.
As someone who's violently kidnapped people to try to force the change in their beliefs, I find his statements quite hilarious.
I've never violently kidnapped anyone, so please don't make an accurate statement.
The caller is actually...
How can you make a statement like that?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of what is called deprogramming, which involves a process of coercion, process of grabbing people, taking them by force, taking them by force against their will.
Mr. Hassan's biography, articles on him, they say that he doesn't do that at all. He only does it through either overt or covert dealings with the family and with the people who are involved. Nothing as far as, I mean, that involves kidnapping.
Certainly there has been a certain element of repentance in the deprogramming movement. I think it repents for some of its earlier excesses, but certainly in the early years of the deprogramming movement,
but you made it sound as though Mr. Hassan kidnapped people.
People who were being held against their will.
Excuse me, Mr. Lewis, you made it sound as though Mr. Hassan kidnapped people.
Violently.
I'm saying he's participating in a process that is a fundamental violation of people's human rights. For him to speak about human rights, I feel, is very humorous. It's rather hypocritical, I think.
Yes. Mr. Hassan is one of a group of many what we call extra counselors or general counselors who counsel cult members, often people who are still in cults or families of cult members, and it's not done coercively. You people are a little behind.
Every
That
time
has
I
been
go
moved
on,
away from.
they
First of
try
all,
to
it was never as bad as you
character
say.
assassinate me. That's their
and
own
this is just simply not done anymore, except
Oh, it
in the most
wasn't as bad as I
extreme
say.
cases.
One of my friends went to visit her mother. She was jumped upon by three thugs, thrown in a van, handcuffed, blindfolded, taken to a farmhouse, held against her will for 3 weeks.
And we
she had
have
to
all
escape.
heard stories like that.
We've all
But
heard stories
I
like
felt
that.
it very important to point out that Mr. Hassan does not do that, because it seemed your statement implied that
He
he
certainly
did.
was involved with that in his early years.
I
He has
never
repented
I
of that
never
now,
kidnapped
perhaps.
anyone. Never.
You might never I'm sure
kidnapped.
you weren't actually one of the thugs who physically landed upon people in the city.
Listen.
Those were usually hired people.
I think we're getting off the point here. I feel like you tried to do a character assassination on me, which is
No,
typical
I thought
of
you
every
were
time
speaking about a
I've been on the media
fundamental
with
violation of
members
human
the
rights. And I
Well,
think we
we
have to
are missing the
understand
point.
where
The
that
point is to start
is.
We are missing the point. The point is that kidnapping is a crime, whoever engages in it. If a religious member engages in it, if a cult or a religion does, I use cult in quotes, that is a crime, and those people must be punished. If a, quote, deprogrammer, I use that in quotes, engages in kidnapping, that person should also be prosecuted. That test should be applied regardless of whether a religious element is involved, because a crime has been committed, and that's what we have to remember.
All right, now say that no crime is committed. Say that someone like Mr. Hassan goes in and he either overtly or covertly tries to deal with the family, and maybe you should explain the two differences
know what
between
covert means.
Well, let's go into that so that you can understand what it is.
Well, essentially, what I've been working on the last few years is finding ways to get access to a person who's in a religious organization or a cult group in order to talk with them, give them some frames of reference for what is mind control, what is behavior modification, what is hypnosis, supply them some information about the group that the group has not supplied to them, particularly testimonials of former leaders and fact-finding commissions and congressional investigation reports, etc. Now, what I found is very important is working with the family to help them to understand what the cult phenomenon is, what mind control is, to understand that the person in the group is not experiencing just negative things, but there are some positive things that are happening along with the negative things, and to teach them communication techniques in which they can sidestep the programming process of the cult so that they can start to re-access their critical mind and start asking questions. You see, when you're in a cult group, you're not allowed to doubt or to question. If you do, you automatically have to do thought stopping. Let me just finish.
Why don't we let him finish?
You automatically have to start chanting, praying, meditating, speaking in tongues, some mechanical device in order to shut off the negativity and recenter yourself on the organization. I practice it in the group. Thousands others have done it, and it's taught by the leadership. So what I think is that eventually, when I can get access to a person in a group, present the information.
When you say get access, what do you mean?
I mean, be able to sit down and talk with them. Now,
Which is certainly not a good
now
thing.
in the case, right? Now in the case of Richard Lewis, he
has done that. Yeah.
He doesn't.
said what he has been told to say about me, which is that I'm evil and I'm satanic
I don't
and
think
I've
you're
lost
evil at
away
all.
and I'm a kidnapped deprogrammer. If his family said, would you sit down and talk with Steve Hassan, Richard Lewis would say, no, he's evil, he's a kidnapper, he's a deprogrammer, he's horrible.
Mr.
So-
Hassan, excuse me. We have to take a commercial break. We'll be back right after these words, and we will be getting to more of your calls.